Good morning, community. Good morning. Welcome to our Thursday Bible study. Glad to be here on this morning with each of you. I'll wait till my behind the scenes host gets us on there. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So many of us are up and ready and gathering and getting on in the room quickly. And so thank you for that. And today we're really going to try to use all of our time going back over some quick loose ends. It's our final day of the week for our Bible study portion. And tomorrow we'll engage in prayer. So I really want to maximize our time today. Good morning to everybody. Tag a girlfriend, get them on over here into the room where we are being the community. We are being better together. I want to acknowledge that even on this morning, literally, we went under our video check in yesterday, and in the wee hours of the morning, around the 3-ish number, we were up calling your names one by one before the Lord. So thank you for being here, for checking in, for letting us know that you're here. There were people that when I checked the list, I was like, oh, my prayer partner, Ross Brazil, was here. She wasn't doing much talking on the comment piece of it, so I didn't even know. But definitely, when I went back and pushed those buttons and saw names, we were lifting up your names before the Lord. And if you're grateful for that on this morning, if you're grateful to know that your name is being lifted up among a community of women who come together to just tap into God, into his presence, lean on that love button, let everybody know how grateful you are for them, for the energy that we create, the good vibes, the good synergy, the coming together that we create for one another here in the community. Welcome, welcome. We are really better together. So today, we're going to just jump right into it. We know that our theme 2023 is well and whole. And as we are making our way towards being well, towards being whole, our intentions have been to see ourselves as God see us, to really embrace what God says about us, and to really understand how he perceives and looks at us so that we can have that as our mindset as well. Yesterday, as we were wrapping up our study, we talked at length about shame yesterday, standing in our scar stories, being released from the strategic move of the enemy as it relates to shame. And so Jen and I backstage were just talking about how so many women were in the comment section just praying or calling out to God to help them to be released from their shame, to be released from the shame of various decisions that either choices that they made are things that happened to them. And so as another piece of this, then I want to just stay right there for a moment. I want to help us with some components of being released from that. I'm going to ask everybody else, if you're already walking free from shame, have done the journey of coming beneath the shadow of shame, then you contribute your faith and your belief in the atmosphere on today for other women who are in that space. But let me start with this, a quick definition of shame, because we say, then what does that look like? Let's do this quick definition of shame. What I have for you today is it's a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by consciousness, meaning you are aware of wrong or foolish behavior. A painful feeling of humiliation or even distress that comes when you have consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. Y'all say foolish behavior. And it can be from the actions of the person or the actions of another. So yes, when we talked yesterday about even being a victim and carrying shame, the foolish or wrong behaviors of another can weigh on us and have us beneath the shadow of shame. So I'm going to loop us into several things and then we're going to just go straight into it. And we're going to renounce and we're going to pray. And we're going to end a bit freer as it relates to shame. So the first thing is this. I want to start with what I left off with yesterday. When we jog all the way back to Genesis, when we look at Adam and Eve and when they made a choice that was against what God had instructed, we can see even back then that the enemy's strategic move was to make them shame. Now, if you were ashamed, if you were here yesterday, tell me, how do we know that they began to deal with shame? There were lots of things that the enemy could have used to make them feel guilty or to make them feel condemned. But we highlighted yesterday in our Bible study that we know that he began to make them have feelings of being ashamed. And we know that because of certain actions that they did. If you were with us on yesterday and you were scholarly, taking it all in, or you were jotting it in your notes, what do you remember about the symptoms that caused them, that gave us evidence, some hint or some inkling of awareness that they were ashamed? What do we remember about that? Anybody remember? What did Jen say? They were, make this a little bigger, y'all. I tell gentlemen different. Very good. See people saying yes. Okay, I have to lean in on this thing this morning because I'm on a different camera. They hid. They were hiding. They were hiding. I see a couple of hidings. Give me more specifics. Yes, they definitely did hide. What was another thing that we said that they did? They were hiding. Y'all remember that when we go back and talk. Somebody else said they covered themselves. Absolutely. They started covering themselves. Come on, scholars. Good. They hid. They covered themselves. Absolutely. So that then, in y'all simple terminology, that's how shame begins to that's how shame begins to show up in our lives. It's this covering and it's this hiding. So in my mind, even as I was processing this, you can raise your hand and I'll act like I can see you. You can give me a thumbs up or put your hand up. How many of you are familiar with masquerade balls? Have ever seen the events or attended the events where you have opportunity to hold up the mask in front of your face and cover up your identity for just a moment? Anybody ever been to a masquerade ball, participated in one, or just familiar with what that looks like? Yes. And so that being said, that paints a tangible picture for us of what shame can do. Shame comes to cause us to hide. Shame comes to cause us to cover ourselves. But shame also enters into our life very much like that. Shame does not just show up at the door and begin to knock and say, hey, I'm shame. This is me. I'm shame. Shame masquerades itself. So when women were saying yesterday, I want to be free from shame, I want to walk in a new freedom, I want to experience not having some sense of humiliation or distress about these behaviors, there are two things that I wanted to highlight. First, the definition of shame, that it's a conscious awareness that something is wrong or off or foolish. But then the second part of it is that shame then not only causes us to operate hiding and covering ourselves, shame also hides and covers itself. Shame masquerades. Shame does not come in your life saying, hey, I'm shame. Shame masquerades. So some of us are clear that we're operating in shame, and others may not even know that we are ashamed because ashamed has masqueraded in our lives. So what does shame look like? This will help us to really begin to be free. To really begin to be free. Shame can look like defensiveness. Shame may not show up in your life saying, I'm shame. This is the residue of shame. But shame can look like defensiveness because You perhaps are ashamed of a certain decision or ashamed of a certain choice. Then, when people engage with you, if it comes anywhere near to addressing that particular choice or that particular issue, we can respond with defensiveness. And it can come off as if, man, that is just a defensive person. They can't take any advisement. They can't take any insight or any type of correction. The surface of it looks like defensiveness, but the root of it is that you are still ashamed. So when someone perhaps brings up that you may want to consider continuing your education, or you may want to go to a different level of professional development, or you may want to pursue getting a certification, and you can quickly become kind of snappish or irritated or defensive about it. And they just think, man, I'm just trying to make a decision, a suggestion. They're so defensive. What they don't realize, and what you perhaps may not realize, is that I'm still really ashamed that I dropped out of high school. I know that outwardly I've said that I've moved past it and I've gone on and made some other decisions, and my life is pretty successful. But the reality is, I'm ashamed of that decision from years ago. And so I'm still carrying the residue of being ashamed, even though it doesn't show up as that. And I'm trying to help us, y'all, so that as we're working at being well and whole, we're not just dealing and chipping away with the symptoms or the surface of things. We're really beginning to get to the root of why we operate as we operate. And when we're empowered with that awareness, y'all, we can do something about it. I'll reference the cohort, which is why I love it, because we really get to the root of the thing, not for the purpose of wallowing in it, not for the purpose of being a victim in it, but for the purpose of understanding, why do I operate like I operate? What's at the root of what's keeping me from not being well and whole? And when I understand what's at the root of it, then I can do something about it. And so now, if I recognize, man, I thought I was over that, but you're right. There's a measure of me that doesn't even like to go back to the class reunions. There's a measure of me that when folk that I was in school with get together, I don't even want to be a part of it. I kind of duck out of it. I always got a reason why I can't show up. And I didn't really think that it was shame, but yeah, there's still a bit of shame that's associated with a decision that I made as a 16 or a 17-year-old. And listen, you all, step into it. This specific example may not be your exact scenario, but the awareness that I thought I was over something, and when I really sit with it, perhaps I'm not, and it shows up in my life as defensiveness, when the reality is, if people will go down about 3 or 4 layers deeper, I'm really just still ashamed of that decision and how it has impacted my life. And when I'm aware of that, then I can determine if there's something that I want to do about that root, or if there is some settling that I just need to do for myself. Are you following me on this morning? Are you following me? So shame can masquerade in our life as defensiveness. Shame can masquerade in our life, somebody put it in the notes, as bitterness. Shame can masquerade in our lives as bitterness or as meanness. So someone may say, man, she is just bitter, or she is just mean. And the reality is, it's not that. I remember listening to a lesson that Sarah Jakes Roberts was teaching, and she was just sharing how when she became pregnant, I want to say at 12 or 13 years old, she talks about it very openly, and how she would go to church. And she one day went home and told her father, Bishop T.D. Jakes, I don't want to go to church anymore. She said, there's this lady at this church who every time I go, she's just so mean. She's eyeing me up and down. She has something to say about everything. And then her dad said to her, honey, it's not you. It's not you. It's when she looks at you, you remind her of the choices that she made at your same age. She, in fact, was pregnant at 12 or 13 years old. And it, in some ways, completely derailed her life. So when she looks at you and you're still trying to go forward and you're still trying to become who you wanted to be, there's a root of bitterness there's a symptom of bitterness that shows up and meanness that shows up towards you, because at the root of her stuff is the ashamed space that she dwelt in as a teenager who was pregnant. There are those of us in our lives who perhaps there are things that happen to us. Hear me, because we're going to go to our resolve, that cause you to be bitter or to be mean, not cause, even past tense could be causing you to be bitter or to have been mean or to act out towards other people. And it's not even that what they have done is so something for you. It's that in the mix of all of that, you see yourself, and you've never been set free from the shame that you carry for perhaps making a similar choice. There are many granddaughters or daughters or mentees who I've sat with, and they've talked about the older women in their lives who've treated them harshly and very mean and just ugly about certain things. And we've had to navigate through. Like, I've had a granddaughter say to me, I don't know what happened to grandma that made her act like that with me. I don't know. I know I made some poor choices, but the meanness and the whatever that was there. And it wasn't until just time passed that I realized that grandmother had made similar choices in her life. But in grandmother's day, if you made that kind of choice, you were treated harshly. So grandmother pretty much just transferred towards granddaughter the same type of treatment that she received when she was in that scenario, when she was ashamed of choices that she made. And y'all, we have to get to the root of it to really identify in our lives, where is shame masquerading? Where is shame masquerading? So I can get to the root of that and make a different choice. I hope you're following me. I know that it's a lot. I know that it can be a lot to process, but let's go ahead and surround all of that space with love on this morning. Y'all can give me a thumbs up if you're tracking, if you're following, if you can understand where we're going. It's a lot. But the more that we dig into it and understand why we operate like we operate, we can do better. Sometimes shame masquerades as disengagement, right? So a woman that you know, a colleague that you know, a family member that you know can be going through something. I see y'all. Thank y'all for that. Can be going through something. And we can choose to pull away. We can choose to disengage. We can choose not to give our advice. We can choose not to speak up. And it can look like, oh, I'm just minding my own business. I just want to be disengaged. I don't want to be in that. The reality is, because you so identify with whatever that is, like, let's just say a woman is going through finding out that they've been cheated on, or they're going through infertility, or they're going through a desire to have started a new business, but they failed before. And some of us can disengage. We can say, you know what, I just mind my business. This is what I do. I mind my own business. That too can be shame masqueraded in your life. How? Because instead of raising your hand and speaking up and helping that woman to know that she's not alone, that she's not the first one to be cheated on, or she's not the first one to launch out in a business and fail, or she's not the first one who wished she would have done something different, or she's not the first one to be promiscuous, or she's not the first one to feel fear. We'll just say, I just mind my own business. That gives us an out. That gives us a way to hide out and not have to raise our hand and speak up and say, me too. So shame can masquerade in our lives as disengaging and minding our own business instead of being on our kingdom assignments. And here's another one that I thought was huge. Shame can masquerade in our lives as staying too long or staying wrong. Everybody hear me on that. Shame can masquerade in our lives as staying too long or staying wrong. Yeah. Shame can cause us to hide out under the words of I'm committed, I'm dedicated, I'm pushing through, I'm going to hang in here. Instead of acknowledging that this was a poor decision, instead of coming to the ownership of my friends tried to warn me and told me don't do that. What shame will cause us to do is rewrite and reframe while we're staying too long in something where we know we don't belong. Shame. Shame will rewrite the narrative, and we will call it commitment and dedication and fortitude. And I am not in any ways indicating that there are some circumstances where that's exactly what we should do. We should push through. We should fight for it. We should hang in there. We should compromise. We should work it out. We should negotiate. But there are other times when shame masquerades in our life as all of that, when really it's shame and we're staying long, right? We're staying long because we're too ashamed to own that we made a poor choice. I see some of you jumping into the comments on today, and I appreciate it. Y'all let me know that y'all understand me. Yes, I see you, Sabrina, saying that. Shame can masquerade in our lives by causing us to stay too long or stay wrong. And I see some of you saying, yes, definitely staying way too long. That's shame. Shame can do all of that. And I'm pointing it out because so many of you were saying, God, release me from shame. And I want you to really understand, how do I identify shame in my life? When we go back to the root of it, then it's the things that cause us to cover and to hide. To cover and to hide. Sabrina, you just added, my God. Tell me more. Why are you saying, my God? My God. So shame can cause us to stay too long. Now, the second part of it is, and I said, shame can cause us to stay wrong, to stay wrong. Y'all hear me? When we know that this decision that we have made, it is just wrong. It is wrong for our life. It's wrong for our children. It's wrong for our peace of mind. It's wrong for our spirituality. Like, shame can cause us, even in being aware of all of that, to stay wrong, because we would rather stay wrong and have the outward exterior of keeping our pride than just to humble down and say, you know what, with my grown self, I should have sat down somewhere and listened. But I didn't. When this is what I love about ownership, y'all, and it is against what the world says, right? But this is what I love about ownership. When we step into our stuff, y'all know who I'm talking to, mature women, kingdom citizens. When we step into our stuff, y'all, and we no longer make excuses about our own behavior, when we own our actions, while there may be a bit of, girl, I gotta go back and apologize, where there may be a bit of humility that has to happen in that, there's also an empowering that comes because you stop existing in life like I'm the victim and everything happened to me and folk wronged me and all of that. You step into a space where you say, I can do something different about this current situation. My future does not have to look like my past. When we really own it, we get to do something about it. Shame can also show up as playing it small. Shame can show up as playing it small. What do I mean by that? Playing it small is when you show up in spaces and places and conversations being less than what you're really capable of being. It's when somebody asks you, what do you think, Teresa? You say, well, I don't know. I don't really know. Or you'll give a whole explanation, but then you'll say, oh, but that just could be me. That just could be my opinion. It's when you downplay what you bring to the table. The way that masquerades as shame is because some of us, when we've messed up really bad, when we step into a situation where we have some insight or some wisdom, we discredit what we can offer in the scenario because we say, well, who am I? Who am I to say all of that when I know what I've done, right? And so we play it small. Shame causes a single mom of however many kids to hear other teenagers talking about going out and being promiscuous and sleeping around. Shame causes that single mom to say, well, since I got all these kids, I'm not going to really try to tell them nothing. Y'all, that's shame. Instead of stepping up and saying, you know what, sis, I know before I even get started that I know you don't even have to tell me. I already know I got 23 children. But let me tell you something. Because of the struggle that I went through, because of the pains and whatever that I had, I want to tell you that what I overhear you talking about, that is not going to be good for your life. I have owned my decisions enough to not hide in the shadows of shame. And I will step up to the plate instead of pretending that I don't have anything to offer. I own it. Before you can say it and try to embarrass me about it, I'm going to say it. But then step up to the plate and tell you why I'm saying it. It's because I want to help rescue you. Regina Bell wrote this song that says, if I could, I would spare you from the lessons, right? From the things I never learned. It was this awareness that I've made some poor choices. And if I could, even though my choices were poor, I would share my lessons learned with you. Wanting you, sis, wanting you, queen, wanting you, daughter, wanting you, granddaughter, to be better and further, faster than I ever was, causes me to have to step out of shame. Now, for those things that then happen to us, for which we have no power and we have no control, we've talked about that yesterday, the rapes and the molestations and all of those types of things, the infidelity from someone else, all of that stuff that happens legitimately to us. What shame can still do is masquerade as rejection, as self-esteem problems where you feel less than, a sense of being disconnected. Because if I'm the product of those situations, I'm concerned that maybe some of that DNA is on the inside of me. Maybe some of that, whoever that person is, that father and that father's family is lingering in me. It can cause us to just have all types of mental and spiritual rejection with ourselves, and we just think it's rejection, or that I'm just struggling with low self-esteem, or I'm just overeating because I just need to get my greediness together. All of that can be the residue of shame, where we've never really got down to the root. And even though mentally we understand that it's not our fault, we've never really still dealt with the fact that I logically understand that it's not my fault, but I've never released myself from the acknowledgement of the awareness that I packed shame about it. I hope I'm helping y'all, because I feel like it's one of those topics, but I want us to understand that is a strategic attack of the enemy from day one all the way back in the garden, is to have those of us, get this, who know the voice of God, because Adam and Eve did, who recognize the voice of God, because Adam and Eve did. His first strategic attempt to separate them from God and from who God had called them to be was to implement shame. So I couldn't just run by it today. I couldn't just see women saying, God, release me, and not try to help us, because the enemy has a head start on putting shame into the earth realm. Long before you and I were even in our mother's womb, the enemy, years, decades, centuries, millennials ago, put shame into the earth realm. So shame has a strong head start. Shame has strategic intentions that are far beyond the awareness of you and I. But here is the blessed thing about it. I was telling Jen earlier behind stage, can you find that scripture that talks about how he took on our shame? How he took on that? So we're going to look that up, because we didn't get to the address because we started talking about some other stuff. But we're going to get to that and really understand how we can come on out of shame. We're at our time already. So this is what I'll say. For whoever's doing our prayer in the morning, Jen, if you'll definitely have them walk through our other prayer points, but if they will linger here for a moment, just really praying for our women as it relates to shame. And even right now, y'all, just in full agreement, everybody, lay on the love button, fill the space with love. I was talking to one of my sisters yesterday, and I said, we keep getting up and we keep gathering. We keep trying to become who God has created us to be. And it is not always, it's not always easy and motivational and inspirational, y'all. But it's real stuff that I hope that if you hear it in the context of the word, hear it in the context of the heart that we have here in the community for one another, that we really become better together, that our only intention is to give us more than hype, to give us more than that. Like, we're gonna need more to survive where we're going spiritually. I want you to hear my heart. So I'm dealing with this stuff because I really want us to be well. I want us to be whole. I want us to be able to be better. I want us to be able to really embrace another woman and truly be excited for her and realize that some of this stuff that I had really in my right here, it had nothing to do with the other woman. I've just been ashamed of some stuff that I made, decisions, choices that I made. And you know what? I own that. And now I'm going to be able to treat my sister better. I'm going to be able to relate with my cousin better. I'm going to be able to hang tight with the queens better. I'm going to be able to be who I'm called to be. Because a lot of this stuff that I'm working on, it's about me, right? Better together. That way we really will be queens that can see other queens, because we've dealt with the shame that has kept us separated. So, Father God, I speak over everybody that's on the line on today. I just declare that your grace and your mercy, it's brand new all over again. And for every woman on here who is processing their life and looking at places where they've been defensive or been competitive with another woman, or bitter, or just mean, or just playing it small, or incapable of receiving any type of insight or correction, or staying too long, or staying too wrong, staying wrong, and any of the dynamics that we talked about today, where shame masquerades itself and we find ourselves doing things, and on the external it looks like it's one thing, but if we deep dive deeper, we realize, yeah, I didn't really want to be here. I was just too ashamed to leave. Or yeah, I recognize that this is a poor choice, but I was too ashamed to just apologize and go get it right. Like, any space that we're operating in shame in our lives, God, we want you to help us. We want you to help us, because you really did come to take away all things that separate us, that causes us to hide and cover ourselves and not be our authentic, true selves, the people that you've created us to be. You came to remove that barrier between you and us, and between us and one another. And we want to walk in that freedom. We want to walk in that freedom. We want to walk in that freedom. We want to be our authentic, true, transparent selves. Anybody in agreement with that? You can say it for yourself. I want to be my true, authentic, like originally purposed, intentional self, in Jesus' name. So again, let me wrap up here. Tomorrow we go into prayer and we'll be praying. But I want to, as always, give you, I say when the session's in, I want you to know what you can do practically to apply it to your life. Of course, you can sit with it and just process. You know what? I was mean. I was mean. I was mean to my younger daughter, to my granddaughter, to my spiritual daughter. I was. And now when I think about it, it wasn't that their actions were that bad. It was just that I was ashamed of choices that I had made. And I didn't even really know how to talk to them about my own poor choices. Y'all, it's the mature woman stuff. It's the grown woman stuff. You know what? I did stay too long. And I did stay because Danielle up the street, my best friend, she tried to tell me that this was not the right thing to do. And I told her off and I acted ugly. And now I'm over here and what she said is right. And now I'm staying over here because I'm ashamed. And you know what? I'm going to go get that right. I'm only talking to mature women and kingdom women who really recognize that when I was a child, I did childish things. But when I became a grown woman, I put away childish stuff. And I just started stepping up to the plate and owning my life and coming from beneath the shadow of shame. So that's the pragmatic, is as you are going through things and you're processing it, I want to break something that church people can do. It is not enough in wrong situations for you to say you went and got it right with God. That's cheap shotting. That's childish. That you went and got it right with God. That's the first step. You can talk about it and get it right with God. But if you have wronged folk and you know it, and you wronged it from beneath the shadow of shame, it's right to go get it right. It's right to just go get it right. To not hide out under his grace and his mercy, but to really mature up and get that stuff right and be free from shame. Don't continue to stay wrong because you don't want Sabrina to know that she tried to warn you about that and you didn't listen. Just going over there and say, Sabrina, girl, I've been shamed. I've been over there in that situation. I already knew you had told me that and I just stayed longer. If she's mature and a good friend to you, she'll be more congratulatory that you got out than rubbing it in your face that she told you. But check this out too. But even if they do give you a good I told you so. And what? If they did tell you so, they told you so. So we own it and we get on up and do what we got to do. I'm just trying to help us. So as you process these different things, own where there's room to get it right and come on out of the pain of the shame. Some of you are saying, I want my relationships to be restored with my daughters, or I want my relationships to be restored with my sons. And you keep praying to God for restoration. And God can do that. But there's a measure of you that if you operated in different things with them out of shame, that you can just say, you know what? I didn't know that I was operating with you out of shame. I was hard on you because when I was your age, I got pregnant. Or when I was your age, I went to jail. Or when I was your age, I was in such and such. And man, that was hard. And I have never talked about it because I was ashamed of it. But when I think about it, that's the root of why I acted with you like I did. And even though my intentions were to help you not make it down the paths that I went down, I did it wrong because I never told you the truth about why I was doing what I was doing because I was ashamed. I was ashamed. And for that, I'm sorry. Instead of waiting 20 years hoping that God restores, you can help move the restoration along by coming from beneath the shadow of shame and really owning different areas in our lives. Okay? So that's that. Let's do the pragmatics of that. I also will continue to say, like, if your shame is from the rejection of like a father or something, a rape, molestation, something that you did not have control over, I will still say this to you. Recognizing that you've been carrying the residue of the shame is still worthy of you doing the work. It's not that in any ways am I saying go and find the person who violated you or go and no, but do I still endorse therapy? Do I still endorse going and sitting somewhere and saying to somebody who can walk you through that while I know this is not my fault, I've heard that my whole life that rape or that molestation was not my fault. But I cannot deny that I have carried the shame of it, that I have somehow felt like I'm missing out because I don't know who my father is, or for all I know, I could be bumping into my brother or my cousin or dating somebody I'm related to. Like there's nothing wrong with being aware that even though this thing was not my fault, the residue of it has shown up in my life and I want to work through it. And I want to finally be healed of it at the root so that I can go on and I can be well and I can be whole. If you understand what I'm saying, because y'all, I'm struggling on this side trying to teach it. I can tell you that. If you're understanding, if you'll give me a thumbs up or you'll say, I understand, or this is helping me, because I want us, y'all, I want all of us to make it to the end of 2023 and find ourselves a step closer to being well and being whole because we did the work. Faith without work, faith without work, it's nothing. We're over here doing the work on ourselves. That's all I got for y'all. I love you all. We'll be right back here in the morning. I see you saying, yes, truly understand. Good. And we're over our time. Jen has gone on to work. So, but this is my last teaching for today. So I want to cover it. I want to prep us for Monday and Tuesday. I want to prep us for Monday and Tuesday because Jen and I already know where we're going. And we saved this last loose ends intentionally. Beginning in March, we'll go back to new queens that we've not talked about. But thanks to my girlfriend Kim, if y'all appreciate Kim for saying that to me, my good girlfriend Kim said, slow down. You cover so much on these queens daily, and there are things that we just need to process. So we spent a while just tying up loose ends about queens that we've already studied. March 1st, we'll go into new queens that we haven't talked about, but we've saved the final 2 days of this month specifically because we're going to talk about Atalaya. We've read about her before. She is Jezebel's daughter, and we are really going to deep dive into generational things. We're going to have those hard conversations about ways of being, dysfunction. Everybody in the family got divorces, or every woman in the family still single. All the children be on drugs. Businesses fail repeatedly, like generational things. So I want you all to come Monday in a spirit of prayer, leaning on the love button when you come in and getting here early because y'all know our 30 minutes go really fast. But we are going to be talking about Atalaya. I will go ahead and tell you where to find her, but that particular day, I had it marked earlier. Oh, it is day number 24 in the book, and it's called Her Mother's Daughter. We're going to talk about generational things because we want to push our necks further faster than we ever went. That's coming. And I keep mentioning that we plan together out loud soon, just for a touch base. And really because I feel a something to pray over you, to to speak into your lives, for all of us to hug some folk tight, to put some oil on some people. I feel a sense of let's huddle and strengthen, and let's really be prepared to go back into our various spheres of influence and worlds, and let's start counting soul snatching. Let's start holding ourselves accountable to saying, I got one this week. I told one good somebody about the goodness of Jesus. Like really taking it up a level, and moving into we're being healed and made whole. But my goodness, I'm about to go for sis. Somebody said that with me. I'm about to go for sis. I'm about to go get queen. I'm about to go grab cousin. Grandma gonna get together. Like I feel this intentionality about, yes, we're huddling and we're getting ourselves together, but we coming for them. Anybody with me? You ready to start coming for them? We're going for sis. Sis gonna get out of suicidal thoughts this year. Sis gonna be above depression this year. Sis coming out of anxiety this year. Sis is coming out of abuse this year in Jesus' name. So I know y'all gotta go. We'll see you right back here in the morning for prayer. As always, I honor the greatness that's on the inside of you.